this is how to do the basic stockinette stitch using a long loom as a rake. And usually when people say rake, they mean that you're using both sides of the loom at once. So just keep that in mind. If you want to do it as a flat panel, you would go across. But again, we're using it as a rake, and I'm going to show you the basic stockinette stitch. It's similar to the cast on. Like, remember we did a video showing you how to do your foundation row, how to cast off these beginning stitches, and I've done a little bit of the basic stockinette just to get this already down a little ways. Now it may look a little different because when you do the basic stockinette, you're going to be knitting off the two end pegs on each side first before you do the middle ones, but you're going to wrap it similar to how you wrapped it for creating your foundation row, and I'll have a link to that above so that you can go back and review that on how to do your foundation row and how to bind off these beginning pegs. So the first thing we want to do is when we wrap it, you have your yarn and you're just going to do similar to how you did before. We're just going, oops, and making sure if you got two strands, I have two strands because with this type of loom I need two to get the thickness I want. If I had a finer gauge loom where the space between was closer, I could probably get away with one, but we're just going to wrap it. Almost think about doing almost like a V. You just kind of go up and down, and then when you come back around, you're going to go to the ones that you didn't do. And you can tell because you can see on the side that you already have two strands and you already have that. So we're just going to the ones that we did not do. And I've got to loosen up my yarn here. There we go. And you can check. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. So when you have that, some of them will not be wrapped. Like this one's not going to be wrapped right now. And then what we're going to do is you're going to do the first two. One that can be done on this side. Now go down here and do your last two. Again, if you're using the whole loom, you're going to go to your last two end ones. You're going to knit them over. Go the other side. Knit them over. Now go ahead and do your middle ones. Keep an eye if you're doing two strands. I think I just messed up one there. Go. Oh, that one goes on the other one. Sorry, I made that in the wrong spot here. Goes on that one because this one needed to get knitted over. There we go. Now you can kind of see that the pattern is the way it's supposed to be. And that's one way you can usually check if you're doing a certain pattern, is seeing if it matches when you hold it the opposite way. But I'm just knitting over where there's two. Now I'm going to go the other side and do the same thing. Making sure both strands get over. That was the problem I had before. You got to make sure that you have both strands if you're using two strands of yarn at the same time. Once you get the row done, go ahead and push these down. And now go ahead and do it again. So again, we're going to take this, we're going to go up to the ones we didn't do. Wait a minute, my yarn is getting tangled more than usually. And what you can kind of do is you can almost follow the pattern you did before. You see how we have a pattern kind of in there? If you look, let me see if I can zoom in so you can see. If you follow the pattern you did before, then you'll be able to kind of see what you're doing before. If you can follow the lines of before, basically. So again, this is the basic stockinette stitch. Making sure if you're using two strands, you get both around. And again, keep your yarn kind of loose. Sorry, don't have it too tight. It might make it hard for knitting over. But again, you're just going on the outer side of the pegs to come back up. They're not getting individually wrapped. Like, you do not see them getting individually wrapped. We're not wrapping them like an E-wrap. We're just wrapping around the base. And once you get it done, give yourself a little slack. And remember, you're knitting the first two off first on each side. So you're going to knit this one, you're going to knit this one, you're going to go onto this side. Now this side actually has two, and we're going to knit these two over. I'm going to knit this one over, go down here to our last pegs, again wherever we are on the loom, and we'll knit this over. So making sure again that we're grabbing both, turn it, come get these two. You can give them a little push down if you want. Now go ahead and knit over the middle ones. Okay, and turn this and get the other side. And this is the basic stockinette. It should produce a nice thick knit, which is great for like scarves, baby blankets. If you're using a long enough loom, you could do a small baby blanket in the stitch. And what it's going to do is it's going to come through here and it's going to be tighter. This was a little loose because I just did sort of the basic stockinette when I did this, but I kept it looser just because I wanted to bring it down through to show you how to bind this off in the other video. So now we're doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work this down a few more rows and then show you what it should look like coming through the bottom. Alright, we've worked it down a little further, and as you can see, which I'm hoping you could tell with the black, this is kind of when I just did a regular beginning row again on the other video for binding on. But as you can see here, we get a little bit more definition of the stitch itself, and it's really thick. Like if you look at it sideways, it's a really thick stitch when you're using 2 strands, and it creates a nice little thickness to it that's great for scarves or blankets if you want something thicker. Again, if you're using a finer gauge loom as a rake, you may be able to get away with just 1 strand, but if you're using a nifty knitter type loom like this, you will end up needing to use most likely 2 strands or a really bulky yarn in order to produce the same stitch. But again, it creates a nice thick pattern. I mean, it's very thick. It's got a little give to it, but it's great for scarves. So this is the basic stockinette stitch, and I hope you enjoy it, and I would love to see any projects you've done with the stitch.